Yeah, so I mean, thanks for talking to me about this. I guess we'll jump right in. Basic first question here. You're running for Congress. You're running for Kathy's seat. Jonathan Bingle is as well. He's visiting the border this week. He says that he's going to be representing Eastern Washington in Congress. He ought to know a little bit about these national issues. He thinks that it's important to actually have boots on the ground to learn about the border. He doesn't think that it's something you can learn about just up here in Spokane area. What's your message for that? And what do you think? What do you think about his visit, overarching?
Well, I mean, it's performative at best. It's you that is not nearly enough. But I do agree with him. He should know at least a little something about federal issues. My experience that I draw on with regards to my opinion on the border comes from several places. One, I have lived in Mexico before. I worked down there, owned a business there. Also, two, a lot of research. It's important to not only rely upon the opinions of Americans, but on facts and data, and also the motivation for why people come, because it is mixed. It's not all the same thing. In addition to that, my cousin has been a Border Patrol agent. He is still with Homeland Security. He has a 25-year career with Homeland Security. And in fact, he actually went to Iraq and helped teach the Iraqis how to protect their border. So with regards to my opinion on the border, it is informed by many things, but also to my cousin who has worked Campo, he has worked Calexico, he worked in Canada, and now he is in Virginia. He can't tell me exactly what he does, but he catches terrorists.
That makes sense. And so to Bingle here, one of the things he notes on his website is that he sports a border wall. He calls it not nationalism. He calls it an effective, necessary tool. What do you have to say to that?
Well, I mean, we do have barriers. We do have barriers on the land, and it can be effective. The sea to shining sea border wall is not an effective tool. I leave it to the good and experienced people of Border Patrol to tell us where they need those areas. But this is not the first thing that is being asked for. And there are several things. One is they're asking to be able to do their job. I have 3 or 4 ideas about at least how we take a big chunk out of the issue on the border. And some are going to upset Democrats, some are going to upset Republicans, so that probably means it's a very good idea. One of the things is we are currently allowing what Border Patrol calls EWIs. It's EWI, entry without inspection. They are commonly referred to as undocumented people and sometimes illegals. Entry without inspection, that used to be that they would try and not get caught. The philosophy now has changed because they are allowed to apply for amnesty. So they are basically just throwing their hands up and allowing themselves to be caught. That needs to stop, because what is happening is that with the surge that we have had in immigration, that is allowing for more bad actors to get through the border. And if there's a couple things that we all can agree on with regards to the border, the first one is that we want to prevent bad actors from entering our country, to stop the flow of drugs into our country. There's no disagreement on that issue. The other thing that we all commonly agree about is that the United States is a light and a beacon for freedom. I'm very proud of the fact that we offer amnesty to people who are abused by their home state. And this is something that we need to maintain. I do not ever want this country to become Berlin, where we lock people out, because when you lock people out, you are locking yourself in. That is not how we do freedom in the United States of America. So for one, we need to push all asylum seekers through proper channels. If they cross without inspection, they will be denied asylum. There should be some exceptions to that, like people who are sexually trafficked, children. DACA needs to come back. Minors do not have the mens rea to commit a crime. And without DACA, it is a slap in the face to our judicial system and how we treat children. I don't care where in the world they come from. I think we all have a softer heart and a kinder touch when it comes to children. In addition to that, currently we only have an H-2A and an H-1B visa. We need an all-encompassing visa. And so a lot of the people that cross without inspection are seeking jobs that we need them to work, but there is no legal process. You know, when I talk to Republicans, their general opinion is have them come legally. But I don't think that everyday citizens have had the opportunity to sit down with my cousin for an hour or two and kind of break down all of the different visas. The other thing that we need to do is that we need to assist Mexico in patrolling its southern border, as well as provide some reinforcement to their north border, which meets our southern border. You know, there's a lot of good ideas out there, but no matter what we do, we need to make sure that we are doing it in a just way and a humanitarian way.
Absolutely. And I mean, you talked, obviously, you're clearly, you know, very knowledgeable about this issue, or you have a very thought out perspective. But if you're running for Congress, one of the things you're going to have to, you know, run into is a lot of competing ideas. You talked about how your ideas could frustrate Democrats, could frustrate Republicans. Mm-hmm. What does it take to get these great ideas that all people might agree on and get them through political gridlock in Washington?
So this isn't about me being right. It's about me being accurate. That's what we should be pursuing, is something that is efficient and effective. So if someone else, I don't care who it is, I'm willing to listen. I do listen to my Republican friends and neighbors, because how can we expect to reach across the aisle if we are not reaching across the street? And that has stopped a lot in this country because we have become so polarized that when it comes to things like this, that the majority of us actually do agree on. You know, and I'm a little disappointed in the Republican Party, as are a lot of everyday Republicans, because leadership has been screaming bloody murder about this issue, and yet they cut the border budget by 22% in March of 23. And then they had a bipartisan deal, which the president, the former president, Trump, just said, nah, you know, because I want to deal with it on the campaign trail. And, you know, in exit polls, they lost the seat that Santos held because of that. You know, it's time for the focus on rhetoric to stop and the focus on real solutions that are going to move Americans forward, are going to maintain our history and our proud heritage of being that beacon of freedom, and also securing our border to keep bad actors out and protect the integrity and the safety of the United States of America. This is the job at hand, and I am more than willing to sit down with anybody that has good ideas and beat out the best policy. And you know what? That's going to change, because things will change. Things do change. This is a constant thing that we have to maintain. And for far too long, both parties have ignored this issue. They talk about it all the time. It's time to stop talking and start walking. I don't care whose fault it is. I am willing to step up and take responsibility for solving it. And that is what it takes to be a strong congressperson for the 5th District, who also relies on immigrants to help work in our fields and all over the place, and also to become American citizens and really contribute to America, which is an amazing melting pot. We have to keep that in mind, in our hearts and in our minds.
All right, I think that's just about it. I guess I'm going to leave it one last question, just circling back to Councilmember Bingle at the southern border this week. You talked about it sort of being a apologies, I forget the exact word you used, but just performative. Yeah. Is there a right way to be taking that trip in this role? Is that something that you think that you would consider doing? Is it something that you would do as a candidate for this position?
Well, when I lived in Mexico, I have driven through the border more times than I can count. One of the things that we forget about is the people that are actually coming here. And sometimes to create the best policy, you need to truly understand all of the motivations in coming here. There's a lot of rhetoric about it. They're coming to steal our jobs. They're coming to, perform acts of terrorism. But we all know that that's not everyone coming across the border. So, if he wants to go down there and look at it, then fine. He says that he wants to put Christian values back into America. But I often question why, when it comes to Christian values, it is always the Old Testament stick. And it is not the good news of Jesus Christ, who is forgiving, who he himself wandered without a place to stay. So I think that if we're going to keep Christian values in our heart and out of our government, this means that we are going to attempt to provide amnesty, to provide food, to provide medical care, because Christ fed people and he healed the sick. And so if Mr. Bingle really wants to do that, then I would suggest he starts coming up with policy that is humanitarian and not just a wall to simply lock people out.
All right. I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today. Again, this will be part of our coverage, election coverage at 6:30 tonight. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. Anything you think, you want us to keep in mind, feel free to reach out. I appreciate you taking your time.
Yeah, it's a complex issue. We all need to be patient and work together.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, you too.